Hey everybody, it's Kristen and welcome back to my channel, All the Stories. Today I'm going to be filming the Booktube Newbie Tag. I'm filming this tag video just so you guys can get to know me a little better, know why I started this channel, why I got into reading, all that jazz. So let's just go ahead and hop on into the first question. Question number one is, why did you start this channel? And I feel like everyone gives the same answer for this question because, I mean, what other answer is there? But I started this channel because I like books and I like talking about books, and I just wanted somewhere where I can go and rave about all my books that I liked, rave about the books that I didn't like, and just have a conversation with people who also read and enjoyed or didn't enjoy these books. So that's why I started my channel. Question number two is, what are some fun and unique things that you can bring to Booktube? I mean, there's so many booktubers out there right now. There's so many people that have just started or been doing it for a long time, so I don't think that there's anything that I can personally bring that's never been seen before, but I hope to bring my energy and my love of books, and maybe hopefully I can introduce some people to some books that they've never read before that become favorites, or just, I don't know, to just spread the book love around. That's why I want to do this channel, and that's what I hope to bring. I hope to bring a point of view that you haven't considered before, or I hope to bring a book that you gonna love. What I want to bring to Booktube is just a mutual love of books. I don't know how to answer these questions. And I just hope that I inspire someone to pick up a book that they end up loving. That's my whole goal. I want to share my love of the books that I love. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. Question number three is, what are you most excited for with your new channel? I'm just excited to, like I said, I want to spread the love of books around just a little bit more. I'm excited to make more friends that read, because I do have friends that read. Not saying I don't have friends that read. One of my friends, she does read, but she doesn't have the same taste in books that I do. Like, for example, she doesn't like fantasy, and that's my brand. I love fantasy. Almost like 90% of the books that I read are fantasy. So yeah, I can't talk to her about most of the books that I read. We do have mutual books that we both love though. And my other friend, she does read fantasy. So I do have one friend that reads books that are similar to the books I read, but I just wanted more people to vent to, because I get very deeply involved with the characters that I love, and I just love the fact that I can come on here and rant and y'all understand what I'm going through. Like, if I talk to my boyfriend about books, yes, he listens. Not saying my boyfriend does not listen, but he's just like, yeah, cool, babe. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. And I just want to talk to people who understand and will feel the same way I feel about these books and these characters and these plots that blow my mind. Question number four is, why do you love reading? Why wouldn't you love reading? Reading is a form of escape for me. It's like you can go places you're never ever actually gonna go, and you can hear, I don't know, it's escapism for me. It's just, you can be transported to a world that's completely different from your own. I love reading because of the feelings that you get when reading certain books. Like, I can go back to books that were my favorites in middle school, like Harry Potter, and it'll give me that same joy that I felt reading it, and that can really brighten my day just by picking up a book. Something so simple, something most people don't even think of doing, but it gives me such joy, and that's why I love reading. I love reading because I love finding those books that you think about constantly. Like, you're in the middle of doing something else and you think about this book, or you open this book that you haven't read in years and it just can put a smile on your face, and that's why I love reading. Question number five is, what book series got you into reading? The book series that got me into reading, I guess I'll just tell the whole little story. I've always loved reading. Ever since I learned to read, I've always loved reading. In elementary school, I loved reading. I loved the Magic Tree House books and Junie B. Jones and the Bernstein Bears and the Boxcar Children and all those great books, Cam Jansen, all that. I loved it. But it wasn't like I am now. I loved reading. Don't get me wrong, I did. I liked reading. Actually, I won't say I loved. I liked reading a lot. That's how I'm gonna put it. I liked reading a lot when I was in elementary school, until one day our teacher in 5th grade put on a movie, because I think it was around the end of the year, and she just didn't have anything planned for us today. So she put on this movie, and it was about this boy who finds this dragon egg, and he finds this dragon egg and goes on this adventure to defeat this evil king. And I'm sitting here like, oh my God, this is amazing. I mean, hello, fantasy, dragons. I already loved fantasy. My favorite movie as a kid was Dragonheart. If you've never seen it, go see it because it's hilarious and it's great and it's amazing. And I still love that movie. Brother Gilbert is my favorite character in a movie ever because he's Brother Gilbert. Anyway, that was my favorite movie since like kindergarten. My family thought it was the weirdest thing that I loved this movie so much for no reason, but hey, that was what sparked my love for fantasy. But then anyway, back to the movie I'm talking about. So the movie in 5th grade, this boy finds this dragon egg and he goes to defeat this mad king, and I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then my teacher mentions to us that, oh, this movie is based off of this book by the same name. And if you haven't guessed or you don't know, this movie and this book was Aragon by Christopher Paolini. And I was blown away that this was a book. And I don't know why I was, but that just amazed me because so far all the books that I had read, all the books that I knew about were children's books, and it was nothing. I mean, fantasy, yes, there were fantasy children's books. The Magic Tree House has fantasy elements in it. You know, it's a magical tree house that can take them back in time. Yes, okay. But this was the fact, I've never seen a book before that was like high fantasy. This was me discovering high fantasy. And I was so shocked that this was a book that I immediately went home and I was like, Mom, I saw this movie. I need to read this book. I want to read this book. And so she bought me Aragon by Christopher Paolini. I do still own the original copy that she bought me in 5th grade, but it's not currently here. It's at my home. It's at my house, and it is paperback, and it is tattered and beat up, and the cover is falling off because I read that book so much, and I was so wowed and blown away by this high fantasy world. I didn't know books could be like this. I didn't know that there could be so much depth to them and so much they could draw you in. This drew me in like no book had ever drawn me in before, and I was hooked. I loved it, and it just made me so happy that I just immediately was like, books. I need more things like this in my life. I need them. And so that's what kind of pushed me off the deep end. I read this book like I think the summer of 5th grade, right from going into elementary school into middle school. And so in middle school, when I got to school, that's when I discovered all the books that I consider the other books that got me to reading, but this book was the book that got me to reading. But in middle school, that's when I discovered Harry Potter and Percy Jackson and all the books that I loved that just deepened my love of reading to the point where it is now. But this is the book that got me there. And after I read this book, I went back and watched the movie, and that movie is god-awful. That movie is trash. How dare they do that to my beautiful Aragon novel? How dare that they make that excusable movie and put the same name on it as this book, because that movie does not do this book justice. And I hate that movie now, but I will always have a fondness in my heart for it because it is what led me to my love of reading that I have now. So I will always give that movie the props that it deserves for doing that. But going back and watching that movie, they butchered this book, and that's probably still one of my least favorite movie to book. I mean, this is one of my least favorite book to movie adaptations, just for the fact that this book gave me so much joy, and then going back and watching that movie and seeing how much they just left out and how much they blatantly changed and how much that movie just, ugh. This book deserves a better movie. I feel like I just gave a rant. Thank you for coming to my Aragon TED Talk, everyone. If you only take one thing away from this video, I hope it's that you need to read this book if you haven't, because this is still probably one of my favorite book series to date. I love it. It's four book series, the first being Aragon, the second being Eldest, the third is Brissinger, and the fourth is Inheritance. And last year, he recently delved back into this world and released I think it's a novella. I own it. It's called, he recently released a novella in this world, and it's The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm, and it takes place after the events of the original series. And I haven't read this yet because I think I was going to read this right when I got it. I just got this book last weekend, and I was going to read it right when I bought it, but then I decided that I think I'm going to do a reread of the Aragon series before I read this, just to refresh my memory and just immerse myself in the world again. And I can't wait to see what has happened to my favorite characters, because the way the book ended off in Inheritance, it left a lot of like, not, it answered all the questions you had, but then the way it left off, it definitely left off in a way where there could be more stories, and I always hoped that Christopher Paolini would make more stories. So moving back into what this video is actually about, because I just went on a whole tangent about Aragon, but question number 6 would be, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? And I really don't know. I guess just my question wouldn't be a specific question, it'd just be, what advice do you have for booktubers who are just starting out? Just any general advice about ways to help grow your channel and make your content better and just constantly keep growing and flourishing as a channel. That's the only questions I really have to ask my favorite booktubers. Question 7 is, what challenges do you think will be the hardest to overcome when starting your channel? The challenges, I have made some videos. If you've already seen them, I do have a couple videos up. So the challenges that I've faced so far are just, I think I'm awkward on camera. I'm trying to let my personality come out more, but it's really more awkward than you think it is, sitting here and talking to your camera when no one else is in the room. When I first thought about starting my channel, I didn't even consider that fact that might be so, I didn't consider how awkward that would be. I thought, oh yeah, just talking to the camera is no big thing. But yeah, I feel really awkward sitting here talking to the camera, and I feel like that comes across in my videos. But I'm trying to do better and get my personality to just burst forth in these videos. So yeah, challenge would be making my personality shine through and not being so awkward or shy or quiet on the camera. Another challenge that I see is being consistent in filming and editing and getting the videos uploaded, because I've been having some problems with that too. Question number 8 is, when did you start reading? And I think I already answered that. I started reading in elementary school, and middle school is where it really took off for me. Summer 5th grade going into 6th grade, and all throughout middle school is where I really was reading the most. And then I still read in high school. It was not as much as I read in middle school, but I did read consistently in high school. And then when I got to college, it kind of tapered off a bit. I was still reading, but not as much as I previously was. And then my reading really blew back up last summer 2018, after I graduated college. I graduated in May, and then that summer I really got back into reading a lot. I discovered Booktube that summer and got all these great recommendations, and that's when I really started reading a lot. Question number 9 is, where do you read? I read anywhere. I read in my bed mostly. I read on the sofa. I read in the car. I do listen to audiobooks when I'm driving most of the time. I read, especially when I'm not driving. I always have a book with me in the car. When I'm not driving, I'm usually reading. I just read anywhere, but mainly in my bed, but a little bit of everywhere. And the last question number 10, is, what kind of books do you like to read? I think I mentioned this too, but fantasy. Most of the books that I gravitate towards are fantasy. Most of my favorites are fantasies. Last year when I discovered Booktube and started reading more frequently, is when I really got into contemporary. So I've just now started reading contemporaries, and I'm glad I did, because I have found some favorites that are contemporaries, but mainly still read mostly fantasy. But I have mixed it up and added some contemporary. I rarely, if ever, read sci-fi. I may read 1 or 2 sci-fi books a year. I am trying to read more diversely, so that may change, but I don't really enjoy sci-fi as much as any fantasy or contemporary. I do like historical fiction and magical realism. I enjoy, because that kind of reminds me of fantasy. So yeah, mainly, to sum that up, mainly fantasy, contemporary, magical realism, and some historical fiction with the occasional sci-fi book. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned some things about me that you didn't know, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!